In this video, I'll show you how I make a handmade silver bracelet with the PotterUSA Coil Cutter Deluxe. The Coil Cutter Deluxe has guides that allow you to cut different widths of jump ring coils. You can also set the blade height to accommodate whatever thickness of material you're cutting. Here I have a coil of oval jump rings that I've made with flattened sterling silver wire. Go ahead and turn the coil cutter on and make sure you have it at high speed for all non-ferrous metals. Then I'm just going to feed my coil through, cutting my jump rings. You can see how quickly and easily the Coil Cutter Deluxe cuts these. No more messing with your jeweler saw, cutting into your fingers. This makes it really easy. It actually also has a coolant receptacle down below, so everything stays nice and cool and the blade stays lubricated as you're cutting. So here I have all of my jump rings cut, and you can see them here, and I'm ready to rinse them and start making my chain. So when I make chain, I actually divide my jump rings into two piles. I'm going to divide them evenly, and then I'm going to close half of the jump rings. So you can see how nicely these come together. That blade is very fine. There's not a very wide kerf, and you get really a nice tight fit for soldering. So as I said, I'm going to close half my jump rings, and I'm going to leave half of them open. So here I'm just using two flat-jawed pliers, a chain nose and a flat nose. It really doesn't matter as long as they're flat. Parallel jaw pliers also work fantastic. Dividing my jump rings into two piles here, half and half, so I can close half of them. This way I can solder half the jump rings closed at once, and then when I assemble my chain, I only have to solder every other ring rather than every ring, and this makes it a lot less likely for me to solder my chain together. So you see I have closed and open, and all those rings that I just closed, I'm going to set up here on my soldering board with the solder seam facing like 12 o'clock or north so that I can quickly and easily get all of these soldered closed. So here I'm just using a bit of paste flux at each seam. And I'm just gonna get all of my rings ready so that once I have the torch lit, I can just go through and solder them all very quickly. Okay, so I have all of these rings fluxed, and now I am ready to get soldering. I have a small pile of solder that I've already cut into small chips, and I'm going to solder with a soldering pick. So I have a small torch tip on here, and I'm going to heat my rings and then place my solder chip with my solder pick, and then just heat until the solder flows. And as long as you have a good fit, your solder should flow, well, a good fit and even heat, your solder should flow where you want it to. If you heat unevenly, your solder might flow to one side or the other. That just means you need to heat a little bit more evenly. And so I'm just going to go through and solder each one of these rings closed, and then we'll pickle them and clean them and assemble our chain. All right, we've got most of them done, nearing the end here. This is why I like to set them all up in the same direction all at once, because it makes soldering go a bit more efficiently. All right, and then once we finish soldering them all, we will get them pickled and cleaned. And once they come out of the pickle, I'll rinse them off, and then we're ready to start assembling our chain. So now I'm going to connect all of these closed links with my open links and slowly build my chain. Again, just using the pliers to open them the amount necessary, slide 2 closed links onto the open link, and then close it back up. Making sure that I have a nice tight seam for soldering. So I will do this with as many rings as I need to make the length of chain that I'm going for. In this case, I'm making a bracelet, so that's the length. I'll probably need between 6 and 7 inches depending on the wrist size. And you can calculate how many links you're going to need. Once you have one of your links made, you can measure it and you can determine how many links you're going to need to get the length chain you need. So here I have my assembled chain, and I'm ready to solder every other link. So I'm going to go ahead and flux the seam on every other link, all those open links. And you could step down. So initially I soldered with hard solder. You could step down and use medium solder, but I prefer to use hard for the whole thing. You just have to be careful with your heat control and make sure that you're not reflowing solder on those first links that you soldered shut, because then you can accidentally, reflow that solder and have it join to the link next to it, and then your chain will be like frozen. And that's not what you're going for. So just pay very close attention to your heat, which is why soldering every other link, that makes that a little bit easier. So again, same procedure, just being really careful with that heat control, making sure I'm only heating what I want to, and soldering each of these links closed, working my way down the chain. And then once I have it all soldered and pickled, I'm ready for cleanup. So you can do this however works best for you, files, sandpaper. I like to use the flex shaft. It makes it go a little faster. This is a silicone wheel. It's a medium grit. So it has an abrasive embedded in silicone, and I'm just using it to clean off that excess solder. And from this wheel, I can go straight to polishing. So I'm just going to work my way down the chain, cleaning up those solder joins, and then I'll be able to take it to the polishing wheel. When polishing chain, you want to be very careful. It's actually safest to throw this in a tumbler. I have it wrapped around a piece of wood here very tightly, and I'm using a polishing wheel to polish it. But as I said, the safest way is to just throw it in a tumbler with stainless steel shot and let it polish like overnight. And that's it. There's my handmade silver bracelet with the Coil Cutter Deluxe. Visit PotterUSA.com for more information.